It takes a few seconds. Sorry, stand by.
No problem. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Web3 Jam. My name is Michelle Lee. I lead the Builders Funnel group at Filecoin Project and Protocol Labs. That spans the gamut from hackathons, grants, accelerators, DevRel. Basically, we're here to make your builders and entrepreneurs' dreams come true. I have some fantastic builders with me today. They're working on some of the most interesting and powerful media tools for Web3. We have Devadutta Ghat from Filecoin, Eric Tang from LivePeer, and Roneil Rumburg from Audius. Why don't we start by having each of them tell us their name, quick one-liner about their project, and why it is that you do what you do. Can we start with Dev?
Hey guys, so glad to be here. My name is Dev. I go by Deva or Dev, but I'm from Filecoin. I'm the CTO at Live Planet, where we build Filecoin network. Our goal is to empower NFTs for everyone, especially the media kind. So like if you see NFTs presently, they're all either some JPEGs or any sort of still experience. Our goal is to take that experience to the next level and enable NFTs for everyone.
Thank you. Eric?
All right. Hi, everybody. I am Eric Tang. I am the co-founder and CTO at LivePeer. LivePeer's mission is we are building the world's open video infrastructure. And that means, this is something that never existed before, and it's going to be a common good amongst all the users of the internet so that applications can be built on top of decentralized video infrastructures that can be much more scalable than current centralized infrastructures. I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks. And last but not least, Roneil.
Hey everyone, I'm Roneil Rumburg. I'm one of the co-founders of Audius, and Audius is a digital streaming service that connects fans directly with artists and exclusive new music. And that direct piece is really what we see the key differentiator here being. And the way Audius achieves that is by being fully decentralized.
Thanks. So I have a few prepared questions for these fantastic panelists, but please drop your questions as well from the audience. Really like to know what's on your mind, what you'd like to know. So please drop those questions in, and we'll get to them throughout the course of our chat today. So the first thing I'd like to start with, stepping back from your softwares, that really you're all building networks for other creators, whether it's software makers or vloggers or musicians, artists. Can you tell us about a creator or group of creators using your stuff or doing something really powerful or mesmerizing, something that really made you proud or inspired? We'll go backwards. Maybe Roneil can step in first.
Sure, yeah. I think one of the most fun things about working on Audius is that what we think people will use these tools for is often not what they actually end up using them for, and people will come up with some of the most creative and interesting ways to kind of engage their fans and engage their audience using the tools that Audius provides in ways we just never conceived of. An example of that is one of our artists, like a year and a half ago or so, named Lido, created a track that he really liked and decided, hey, I want to upload all the stems and all the kind of like the bits of the track that I used in my Ableton or whatever to make the track to my fans, and tell them, hey, like, anyone make your own variation of this as a remix, and I'll listen to all of them in a live stream like next week at this time, right? So he uploaded all those stems as separate tracks on Audius. He said, tag your track as hashtag, I forget what the hashtag was, but that at least gave him the ability to search by that tag and then listen to all the tracks in order. And then he ended up picking a few to kind of repost and elevate to the broader fan community as things that he really he felt, did honor to his original work. What was so cool about that, like that was not, a feature of Audius or anything else. It was just, him having direct access to fans was like, hey, I'm going to try this and see what happens. The community ended up building like a formal kind of feature around that later. But I think that's where kind of the best features have come from, right? Is when you look at the emergent behavior that the community is using the tool for and say, hey, like, people are jumping through 15 hoops to do it. Maybe we can make it like 2 hoops or 1 hoop or whatever instead, right? So now there's actually a little like remixes section on every track. And if an artist tags their track as being remixable and uploads the stems, that actually shows up in like a little section on the UI. So yeah, it's been really cool to that's just one example that comes to mind, but it's been really cool to see how people will use these tools in ways that you just never could predict.
Yeah, I can go next. We don't directly work with creators and people who use our tools because we work with other people who create marketplaces and tools for creators. But one of the companies that we recently started working with is called Mintworks. They have some really, really interesting clients. And it's really fascinating to see how far they take the NFT concept. So in our case, we power NFT experiences that are primarily focused on videos and media files, right? Like let's say audio file or a video file or document files or anything that is a rich experience. We power NFTs around that. But when we started working with them, it was really cool to see that they have this holographic video format. Literally, it becomes you get a small device. It's like it just comes in a mailer. It's like a small thing that pops up. If you put it on your phone, you can actually see a video pop up and visible in 3D, like a hologram, right? And they're trying to make NFTs out of that. So it is super cool to see how far they're taking our platform and what they're applying the tech that we have. So we, it's kind of really hard to describe that thing, but like once it's out there, it's really cool. Let's say you have a sports, somebody playing some sport, and then that video was captured. You can actually relive that moment in 3D. So I thought it was super cool for the many things that are going on right now.
Sounds like a really incredible like expansion of Pokemon Go.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, and I can go next. When I think about creators in the Live Here ecosystem, I also think about creators who use all these cool platforms that are built in our ecosystem. There's on average over 2.5 million minutes of video that's being broadcasted on the Live Here network today. So on a weekly basis. So there's so much going on. I think my personal favorite is there's this DJ booth in Brooklyn called the Lot Radio. And the Lot Radio is kind of like a pretty famous booth around the world, right? They invite DJs that come from all over the world to do this like 24/7 live stream that, it's just is nonstop. And they use LivePeer to power that. So anytime you go to the Lot Radio, everything above the fold is just this live stream of DJs going, doing their sets in that booth, and that's LivePeer powering it. And sometimes I like walk by the booth because I go see a friend in Brooklyn or something, and I'll be like, oh, like LivePeer is powering that. So that gives me a lot of satisfaction.
Really good vibes. Awesome. So it's 2021, it's almost 2022. NFTs are really widely known in pop culture now, if not fully understood, I'd argue. Today they're collectibles, though. It's like how the majority of people view them. But if you like unpack NFTs, non-fungible token, the T stands for token, right? And Wikipedia defines token as something which represents the right to perform an operation. And the dictionary says it's a piece you can use instead of money in some machine. So these words like use, perform, operate, that's a lot of action verbs. So I want to ask you all, like, what's around the corner for NFTs? Like, how do we get them off the shelf, stop collecting dust and turn them into some, an object or passport that really transports you to new Web3 interactions?
Yeah, no, I can go first. I think in terms of NFT, it started off with when CryptoPunks and other CryptoKitties and other NFTs launched. I think it started off as collectibles, but as we see the industry mature around NFTs and the applications that we're seeing, it's quite fascinating to see what creators are doing. Like for example, on our platform, you can, for example, take an NFT and apply DRM on it. So we have certain musicians and music artists who are looking at launching their albums as if it is a key to access the album, right? So they want to sell their album, and you can hear that album if you have access to that NFT. So in this case, it applies to that token methodology where, okay, by the virtue of you holding that token, you can listen to that album. And then there are other creators that partners that we're exploring pay-per-view videos, right? Let's say if you see typically the way videos work and pay-per-view works is you go rent a video and then you view it. If you don't view it within 48 hours, then the rental expires. But people are exploring use cases where you have an NFT that gives you rights to watching that video. And let's say you don't want to watch it, you can actually transfer the rights to somebody else because arguably, because you did not watch it, you still have the rights. Or let's say you purchased the video and then you want to transmit over, you still have the rights to do that. And then there's another partner company that we're exploring working with, where they're actually trying to take legal agreements and convert them into NFTs. So let's say you had some sort of any DocuSign type of scenario, where you signed an agreement with somebody. Presently, all those documents live on the centralized cloud. But imagine that DocuSign document actually happening on Web3 infrastructures. Let's say the agreement itself was written up in an NFT, and the document was written down to decentralized file systems like Filecoin. So those documents can live on in an encrypted format in a decentralized fashion for a long time. So we're seeing even more exciting use cases about NFTs, where the T part or the token part is used for access, used for rights management, and used for other applications way beyond just being a digital collectible.
Yeah, I think that's a really good lens into kind of the future dev. And the way I kind of think about NFTs is it's kind of this blockchain native content publishing, right? So you're publishing a piece of content. Before, when you do that, you put it into someone's database, and it lives in that database, and people can query it. Now, when you publish a piece of content, it is publicly available and is rooted on the blockchain, so that people can identify and associate that identifier with anything that they want, right? So I really think the design space is so big that we're barely scratching the surface right now, even with the use cases that we're seeing now beyond collectibles, right? It's just so early, and so that's why I'm so excited about this. A few things that I've seen recently that are pretty interesting. One is I think we're starting to see NFTs representing memberships in online communities, right? And whether it's Bored Apes or Friends with Benefits, right? Well, I guess Friends with Benefit is not exactly NFT; it's more like a actual token, but kind of representing membership in communities, and that's, I think, a building block that can be used to build all kinds of experiences on top, right? So it's kind of like an open invitation for developers to build tools for these communities that exist, and they're like franchises, right? We're starting to see people turning NFTs into comic books, into TV series, right? And these are all kind of derivatives that are built on top of the NFTs. That I think is really, really powerful. Some of the things that people are kind of experimenting on using LivePeer, for example, doing token gated live streams, right? And that can be applied into so many different areas, whether it's kind of the token representing an event ticket for a virtual event that people need to, get access in order to watch the video, or it's I'm doing a performance, and the performance is only going out to like the Bored Apes. So you need to own a Bored Ape in order to watch my performance, right? And if you think about the incentives behind these types of behavior, like just from token gated experience, live streaming alone, you can start to design all these different interesting applications for different purposes.
Yeah, and happy to finish off here. I definitely would echo a lot of what Eric and Deva said. I think we're on the cusp of so much more utility being available for these NFTs, and really excited to kind of see that tool chain flourish. I think that's also where we've seen Audius so far fitting into this kind of picture, similar to what Eric said about LivePeer. Audius has been used by our creators as like a distribution channel to get NFTs into the hands of some of their fans, like by minting to the addresses that follow them, for example, or things along those lines. But over time, and already there are folks in our community working on building specific tooling to do things like token gated access to content. Things like consumable NFTs, I think, are very interesting, right? Like, what if you could mint a given number of listens on a track, and there's like a market of those like listens that could trade, and as they dwindle over time, as people cash them in to hear the content, you can see some really interesting kind of crypto economic things happening around that. So more philosophically, we're just very excited to see the continued exploration that like creators building in this space will have now that these tools are available for them. I think we're all going to be very surprised by the things they come up with over time. It's going to be really fun. But I will say too, I think there's NFTs as they are today, I think still do serve a purpose and have a utility to the users buying them, even if they can't actually necessarily use them for anything, right? I would define that utility almost in a similar way to the way that folks who would like collect Pokemon cards or things like that might get some value from that act of collecting and engaging with the creator that created that piece of art or that asset. I feel like there's such a push in crypto right now more broadly to like try and add all this functionality and whatnot to NFTs, which, I think it's great that there are more tools available, but I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with an NFT that's just purely a piece of art that's cool, right? I think there is still value in that for the right creators and for the right communities. So yeah, it is a really interesting time, though. Obviously, from a kind of cultural awareness perspective, Michelle, as you mentioned, NFTs are having a moment right now, and I hope our whole community can leverage that moment to create some long-term, durable, sustainable kind of value accrual to creators, and create sustainable channels for distributing and reselling and sustaining markets around these things. But it's been definitely looking forward to what's going to continue to come here. And it's we should all count ourselves very fortunate to get to live through this time in crypto and in NFT land specifically, because it's really special.
So Roneil, I want to dig in a little more on this word you said, simple. Audius has a beautiful web-based media player, right? And yet I think, if I remember correctly, you said recently on a podcast that more than 50% of your listens don't come through that media player. They come through embeds and other other kind of API access. How do you ride the line between, and this goes to an audience question from Colin Steitman. Do creators have to be tech savvy to get into this space? Do listeners have to be tech savvy? Do they have to care, if they've used up 8 of 10 allowable listens? Like, how do you wrap amazing user experiences around the complexity and the possibilities?
Yeah, we think a lot about this at Audius. I think this has been kind of being able to walk this line between providing the kind of value propositions that decentralized products can offer that centralized ones can't, namely like this complete access to the relationship with the fan, the kind of security and safety from everything from deplatforming to like the changing out of the API, as we've seen on Twitter and SoundCloud and most other centralized services that have a robust API they leverage to grow and then ultimately pull the rug on later as they've reached some level of scale. We can, I think, provide those value propositions without necessarily having to re-educate users on how to use these products, right? The vast majority of Audius users don't have a crypto wallet installed and are able to use Audius just fine without that. And we can see that in the analytics that we get right from what Chrome extensions they have exposed to the page and whatnot. So you can, it is possible to provide these value props to users. Like in Audius, you can sign up with a username and password and have a wallet generated for you that's non-custodial and custodied on your browser, but still gives you the ability to engage with and access all these cool things without ever even knowing that that's happening, right? Like you're just clicking play on tracks and reposting things and having a good time. So I think that we got started in 2018, right? That was a different world. It was much harder to thread that needle. I think the quality of tools available today make it a lot easier, right? And I think we've predictably seen a massive uptick in growth across the crypto ecosystem as a result of things getting easier, but it's still hard. Still certainly hard to engage with a lot of these crypto native assets like NFTs and whatnot. So I think that's where kind of the next uphill battle for our community is, right? I think there's something like 600,000 odd people have purchased an NFT before via OpenSea. And that's, I feel like a relatively good high watermark for like what is the entirety of the NFT ecosystem community, and that's like that's teeny tiny, right? Audius has about 7 million people listening to content on a monthly basis right now, which is great, but and people are often excited to hear that number in crypto, right? Because that's a big number, but there are hundreds of millions of people that listen to content on other platforms, and I don't think our community doesn't see crypto as the bar that we should measure ourselves by from a usage perspective. We see these large consumer scale products being being the realm that we play in. So I think there's a whole lot more work to do there, but I do think the key to hitting that scale is to help users bridge their way into this. When you use Facebook, for example, you don't have to know that they use like MySQL and Cassandra and like God knows what other like hundreds of different things are in their tech stack, right? Like no one cares, right? The tool does a job for you and you're happy with it. Over time, I think crypto will come to that stage as well, right? Where you don't have to understand how to bridge assets between chains, and you don't have to understand how to set up a self-custodied wallet and put a key in a safe deposit box and go buy some Ethereum on Coinbase just to interact with like a product, right? It's kind of a big ask to make of the user. I've even heard there was one I won't name who because they're known, but there's a product building for consumers a couple of years ago that would prompt folks to install MetaMask in their onboarding flow, right? If they didn't have the Chrome extension already, and they saw over a 97% drop off in their sign up funnel at that step. Like 97% of the people who don't have MetaMask and get to that step of sign up, like never finish, which is, pretty wild to think about, right? So yeah, I think our work is cut out for us as a community, but I've been really encouraged to see, especially over the last 18 months or 2 years, how many like more kind of consumer product-y people are getting excited about building here, because there's a lot of greenfield. I don't think there's much greenfield left in consumer and traditional tech, but in this landscape, there's no one's really built anything yet, right? Greenfield is everywhere if you're able to kind of put up with the brain damage of building in this space, right? Yeah.
So Roneil, I think you just gave all these hackers and builders like some free tips for great project ideas. It's like translating the complexities of everything here into beautiful user experiences. And speaking of users, Eric, I want to jump to you. So LivePeer has platforms or solutions for developers and users and broadcasters, channels. Like that's really a cool rainbow of participants in this decentralized network. Can you tell us about how these different segments come together into a peer-to-peer network, how they're combining to save the world from video bandwidth overload? And also for hackers and builders who are just starting a project, what's your advice on how they should think about scale? Because when you're building something at home for yourself or for a hackathon submission, like they're not quite at scale yet, but when do those roadblocks happen? How should people think about that?
Yeah, those are it's a great question. Like I'll give you an example. This is an interesting case study. So when at the beginning of COVID, everyone started working from home, and no one can go outside anymore. So there was a group of guys who started this project called playdj.tv, and their goal is like all the DJs are stuck at home, they can't play their sets at clubs anymore, so let's create a platform so they can stream from home. That project got like 2,000, 3,000 DJs to sign up within the first couple of weeks. And all of a sudden just took off and immediately had to shut down because the cost of maintaining that infrastructure was just too much. They were using kind of traditional Web2 infrastructure. This was early days in LivePeer where our hosted gateway service wasn't working so well yet. They somehow found out about us, and we started working together, and we kind of worked together for about 3 weeks to relaunch their site, right? And now PlayDJ is up and running, and it's been running throughout the whole pandemic. They've been providing this great service for DJs all around the world, and I think that's a really interesting example to share here, because when you're working with video, like scaling problems come at you real fast. It's much faster than like when you were serving a web page, right? Because the amount of data that's required to process for delivery, but also the amount of computation capacity required to process the video is tremendous. YouTube is by far the biggest computation consumer inside the Google infrastructure, exactly because of this reason, right? Because it's so power hungry. I guess as builders, I think like the problem of scale is real, and especially when you're building a video application, it really is important to make sure that the video infrastructure is scalable so that you can deliver this a good viewing experience to the viewers, right? We all know there's like the watch rate drop off dramatically even after a single buffering event. So really just trying to make sure that don't hit any buffer event at all. And in terms of LivePeer, LivePeer is a decentralized marketplace almost for infrastructure and application developers to come together, right? And there's this simple set of incentives that incentivizes this marketplace to emerge that then also serves as an infrastructure. So in the LivePeer protocol, it's just a set of smart contracts that's deployed on Ethereum, right? It just gives kind of security guarantees to all these parties so that when they're participating in this decentralized marketplace, they can trust that they're not going to be cheated because there is kind of economic there's economic security in place that guarantees good behavior and disencourages bad behavior, right? And I think from there, the beautiful thing is that you like the lesson that we learned here is really from kind of the early Bitcoin world, right? Where very early days, people were mining Bitcoin on their laptops. And then very soon people realize, oh, I can write, if I know how to program a GPU, I can like write a GPU program to put it to mine it on GPUs. And that lasted for about 3 months until someone realized, oh, I can do like FPGAs. That'll be much faster, right? And people did FPGAs. And then very shortly, people realized, oh, you know what, ASICs is the way to go, right? And we're just going to create special hardware to mine, right? And all of that happened not because Satoshi Nakamoto said everybody needs to build ASIC miners in order to mine Bitcoin, right? It's a simple economic incentive, and it just triggered all these things. So we kind of follow the same principle in that we just set up this incentive mechanism, and it's pretty incredible how like this network has formed around this incentive in order to stream video, which is like a pretty complex thing to do from an infrastructure perspective, right? People figured out, oh, like GPUs that are mining cryptocurrency can actually also transcode video at the same time, right? Because there's like different parts of the chip do different things, and that's like something that that's a thing that people discovered along the way, and I think there's all these different pockets of resources on the internet that's not being used right now, like similar to Filecoin, right? Like people are building Filecoin miners, but I think it'd also be interesting to think about like there's all these different unused storage around the world just sitting there doing nothing. It will be awesome for smart people to figure out how to tap into those resources and put it all together and actually serve users in a more peer-to-peer way. So that's kind of how things all fit together now. Now with there's about 100 nodes on the LivePeer network, all running transcoding, and there's for those among those 100 nodes, there's access to I think 50 to 100,000 GPUs around the world, all kind of doing transcoding.
And Roneil, you've also chosen a decentralized and sort of tiered approach to network and bandwidth at Audius. Can you talk to us about your peer-to-peer architecture?
Yeah. So we Audius is built to kind of host and distribute content, right? First and foremost, and that means you need to store the content, you need to be able to look up the content, and you need to be able to discover the content, right? And find a way to discover that metadata. So those are kind of the three principal problems that kind of the Audius network architecture was designed to solve for. And I think we were very fortunate that IPFS kind of for us solved that center or that second piece that I just mentioned, which is how do you actually look up the content once you know what you need? How do you get it, and how do you do so in a performant and low latency way that's still fully decentralized, right? So now with the launch of Filecoin as well, that potentially solves the first piece there as well, especially as Filecoin is able to serve smaller requests and smaller file sizes with lower latency. So we're really excited about that. But the way the Audius network is laid out, there's kind of a set of layer one blockchains, Ethereum, POA network, and Solana that the Audius network uses to coordinate on various things like who uploaded what content and who has permission to change what, and what actually is that content. But what's being written on chain is just a multi-hash reference to blob of metadata that lives off chain, and then within that metadata is actually references to the specific content that is attached to that track. So if I upload a track to Audius, I'm actually uploading that track to one of these third-party nodes that run on the Audius network that help transcode audio and then also pin it on IPFS and keep it available over time. That node will return back to my browser, a multi-hash reference to that track. I would submit my browser submits a transaction on chain to say, hey, I'm publishing this track, like great. That gets picked up by these indexing nodes that are native to the Audius network, and that fetches the metadata, indexes it into like a more typical Postgres database kind of structure, and then produces an API on top of it for querying and looking up that data. So putting all those pieces together, what you get is at the end of it, a workflow both for uploading content to a decentralized kind of hosting network, and a way to search and retrieve that content afterwards, right? And we were able to kind of build this architecture of semi-trusted or semi-trusted through the staking mechanics around them that enforce trust. Third-party nodes that are hosting that content and indexing that metadata. And the way that all kind of is powered is with IPFS at the center, right? Being able to know that, once you know what you need to find, there's a way to look it up without knowing where on the network it is. And then there's a way to validate that you're actually getting what you think you're getting once you get it through content-based addressing, right? So, yeah, it's been really cool to see this work in practice. I think the network today stores over 600,000 tracks and like something on the order of 25, 30 terabytes or so of data backing those. There's a reason I think this could work for audio and probably wouldn't really work today for storing video. I'm curious, Eric, for your take on that. Like streaming video is different from storing it, obviously, and just the storage requirements and everything else that would come from storing 4K 60 hertz or 60 FPS content for the same amount of audio that we have would just get to a level very quickly that's that these tools may not be able to keep up with, right? But compressed audio is pretty small, actually. Like folks don't realize that, compressed audio is like a megabyte or so per minute, even if you're doing like 320 kbps, like the, kind of the maximum that you can with, most codecs that are available right now. So it's interesting that I think we saw this play out with the early internet as well, right? Where music was the first the first kind of pioneer market that started to create a use case for the internet, and then over time, that expanded out. But storing video online took another 7, 8, 9 years after music being distributed online became the norm. So it's interesting. It's really cool to see LivePeer prove that out on the streaming side. Like that's working, and it's working really well. So I'm excited to see the eventual YouTube, decentralized YouTube equivalent come up sometime in the future.
Yeah, Roneil, you're just giving away hackathon project ideas left and right. It's funny you mentioned that storage becomes a huge problem because Filecoin's one of the biggest decentralized storage network in the world right now. I think it's at we're close to 13 exabytes and growing. And so project to pair up LivePeer streaming and then also archive all your streaming to Filecoin would be awesome to see, right? And I think Web3.storage is a really simple, easy to use API. And then estuary.tech is another great service that, both of them wrap IPFS and Filecoin together under the hood. You make a single API call, and, then a lot of it is down to the user experience or creator experience of how you slice videos, how you want to archive them, name them, store them.
Yeah, we use both of them to store videos on our platform that hits us, right? One of the things that we get out of these decentralized storage platforms, especially Filecoin, is resilience, right? These videos that we store using either estuary or NFT storage or Textile. Textile is one of the other things that we use to access into Filecoin. it gives us resilience right now. So when it's archived down into Filecoin, we know that the video file will live on forever, or at least as long as Filecoin's around and as long as we have the miner deals ongoing. But where we do see certain challenges is when you're retrieving from Filecoin, you definitely cannot do videos. Like it's just not even possible because of the retrieval times. So it takes time. So we know that there are a lot of innovations coming up in Filecoin itself around the retrieval markets. Until that happens, we have a different caching layer mechanism where we cache stuff in IPFS, and then also add another layer on top of IPFS, because if in case the IPFS gateways are down, we pull video content from our third level cache. So it's almost like we do a CDN-like infrastructure where, okay, we try to hit our first layer of cache. If it misses, and then we hit IPFS. If it misses, then we hit Filecoin. That seems to work really well for us, and also works well for our decentralized workers that do the actual work for us, right? Like we have about 1,200 workers registered on our platform, and then they accept video workloads from us especially when we do DRM for NFTs, etc. All the encryption, re-encoding, and re-encryption, etc. The DRM methodologies are actually done by the workers. And after that, they transmit it over to the first level cache. And from there, we layer it down to the further levels of cache. So it helps us fix some of the problems we're dealing with video right now. But yeah, there's so much innovation that can be done in terms of how video is stored in decentralized networks, how it's accessed, how it's pulled, how it's distributed. I think, yeah, there's just not hackathon ideas here, but they're like billion-dollar company ideas here, especially on the heels of something like Filecoin. People can build massive, massive businesses.
Yeah, and I just want to put in a plug here. If you go to hackathons.filecoin.io and scroll to the bottom, we have a number of grants programs and accelerator programs. And really here, we don't bite. We want to hear from you. Happy to chat. You don't have to have like the perfect application the first time around. So anyone who kind of sees the potential here and wants to build an incredible project or business around it, myself, my team, all of these founders here are here to help you. Deva, I think if I remember correctly, VideoCoin launched in May of 2020, right? And that's like a few hundred crypto years after Eric and Roneil launched their companies and projects. I want to go to an audience question, which is, how do you get your Web3 projects noticed and used? What was your marketing? Did you have a marketing strategy? How does adoption work today?
I think for us, we're more like a B2B company where we try to find all of these companies that are trying to access, let's say, the NFT ecosystem. So one of the things that we do is we build a NFT marketplace in a box. You run a few commands and then an NFT marketplace comes up in 15 minutes. It's kind of, it gives you everything that you need. You need a React app, you need a backend for creating, minting the NFTs, storing it on transcoding and encrypting it on the VideoCoin network, and then storing it on Filecoin, right? So we have that whole stack that comes up and running, and then people can use it to deploy marketplaces. So for us, it's traditionally been doing business and business development with other corporations and other entities. So it's honestly, as we started off, although we launched the product in production in 2020, we were in alpha in 2019. So to say the least, it's a very challenging environment, right? Like, it's one thing to get some cool Web3 developers to start using our platform, but as soon as you start pitching it to Fortune 500 companies or companies that have real, massive customer bases, a lot of the problems that start coming up around some of the UX stuff that you brought up previously, right? Like, how do you get people to even buy an NFT or interact with our platform? So throughout the company's history, we've tried to do things that simplify stuff for us. Like, for example, we added fiat payments very early in the game. So people did not have to deal with crypto. We also implemented fiat compensation for our workers as well. So like the workers who mine VideoCoin on our network get compensated in fiat. So all of this was done, try to deal with the adoption problems, right? Like when Fortune 500 companies or companies that look at our platform. It's gotten way easier though. I think as we have faced the battles in these marketing areas where we're trying to convince people that, hey, Web3 is a real thing, decentralized platforms actually work. These are not just ideas in a laboratory, right? Like these are real things that actually happen. So it's been a process for us, but for us, what has worked is, getting really cool demos, like that people can actually play with. And that really helps with adoption. So when people see the thing work, it really helps. And then the second thing that has really worked for us is, again, try to remove barriers. So one of the things that we tried really early on was with fiat payments, we also started giving out some free credits so people can start using the network. That really helped. People tried our networks out. I think, yeah, for us, removing barriers, making everything easy, making it really simple, and making the stakeholders understand that a decentralized Web3 protocol is no longer something just a white paper, but it actually works, has been working for us.
Great. Eric, Roneil, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think of like marketing in Web3 as like very similar to like community building, right? Because like Web3, the Web3 world is so community driven, and the special thing that we have is like tokens, right? So what do tokens represent? Tokens represent ownership. They represent like skin in the game, right? Once somebody has a token, they become a community member, and their behavior change because of that. So at LivePeer, we really try to understand, okay, why are people in our community? Like, what are they doing here? And how can we create things create a space or create tools for people in our community so that we can turn them turn them into like active community members, turn them into evangelists, turn them into builders, right? So we even go as far as like, we recently acquired a company that creates this awesome media server, and we're in the process of open sourcing that media server. And in order to the reason we do that is because we want to make a contribution to the video infrastructure, to the video developer space. So that there's people who hear about this open source software and they use it and they feel like it's a good tool, and that's like a form of marketing for us.
Wow. So for both of you, marketing is not about what announcements you put out or what events you put on, but really how you speak through your code and your software products, right? And speaking of community, Legend of Mar wants to know, what kind of impact can a person with just 1 or 2 GPUs make in transcoding or mining or participating in all 3 of your networks? Is it feasible to be a solo small-time participant?
Yes, on our platform, yes. So the way we have set up our workers are like, you can start off with something as simple as a Raspberry Pi, because a Raspberry Pi has a video encoder on it. Most people don't know about it, but with just a Raspberry Pi, you can get on our network. And then if you are a bigger miner and you have a lot of compute power, if your CPU is doing something, then you can still use the GPU to do our network. And then we have certain partners who try to co-mine Filecoin and Videocoin. So there's a lot of things you can do with just a Raspberry Pi and getting on the network.
Yeah, same for LivePeer. They're like at the very beginning, everybody was a small miner, right? And over time, people have grown, and the mining operations have grown bigger and bigger. And so there's been mining pools that have popped up in the LivePeer ecosystem, not dissimilar to kind of a Ethereum Bitcoin mining pool, where solo miners can join these mining pools and still participate.
In Audius, actually, unfortunately, you can't really participate from home the way things are set up. The nodes that are on the Audius network need to be reachable from browsers that users are using, right? So that means there needs to be some DNS name for reaching it, and there needs to be like an SSL cert provisioned and some stuff like that. So right now that's quite limited to, you know, professional node operators, folks who are in data centers, et cetera, or are consuming space in data centers via AWS or things like that. But there is an effort in the community underway to kind of, especially on the file storage and replication side, to be able to leverage, you know, you can separate like the CDN piece of Audius, where content needs to be able to be fetchable and fetchable quickly from archivally where it may be stored. That's also where tools like Filecoin come in, right? And serve a great value as kind of an archival backing of sort of CDN. But yeah, the constraints and needs of Audius today, unfortunately, mean that you know, it's kind of a professional game for now.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all of our panels for this great discussion. Clearly, you're some of the biggest pioneers in the space of how Web3 and media intersect and innovate. What's the best way for builders to learn more about your networks or get help or start building on your platforms? You've all got great talks and documentation online. Are you in the ETHGlobal Discord? Where else should they find out about your tools?
Yeah, I'm personally available on the Filecoin Slack, as well as you can hit me on our VideoCoin Telegram, as well as on Twitter. Those are the three best ways. And we also have a forum, but real-time communication happens on Telegram, our Discord, as well as our Twitter.
Yeah, for Audius, I think the best source of docs, resources, information is audius.org. That's kind of the developer home for getting engaged with and learning about Audius. And you can come find our team in the Audius Discord as well. That's the best place to reach out, hang out. Meet your 25,000 odd other friends in the community or whatever. And for updates, etc., we're Audius Project on Twitter is the handle. So give us a follow and follow along.
Yeah, and for LivePeer, a bunch of our team will be active in the ETH Online Discord throughout the hackathon. So if you're hacking, definitely come and say hi there. LivePeer has a really active Discord, and that's where a lot of the communities hang out. Twitter is also a great place to kind of follow about the latest and greatest of the project.
Great. Well, thank you again. And to everyone who's out in the audience, can't wait to see what you have to build, inspired by these amazing speakers and everything that's, all these new tools, resources, frameworks that are available for you. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Michelle. Great
Thanks,
panel.
everybody.